A few months ago, I made a video about how the Moon Swatch hype was finally dead. The constant release of new Moon Swatch models saturated the market, and it suddenly didn't feel special owning one of these watches anymore. Not to mention build quality issues and still quite questionable pricing. So, where are we now with the whole Moon Swatch story? Let's take a look. So before I go into this, here's a quick recap for anyone who may have been living under a rock. When the Omega and Swatch Moon Swatch first appeared in early 2022, it sent a shock through both the watch world and popular culture. It was an idea that seemed almost unthinkable, a mass-market collaboration between Swatch, known for its playful affordability, and Omega, whose Speedmaster Moonwatch remains one of the most revered icons in horology. The very concept blurred the boundaries between luxury and accessibility. Here was a watch that carried the mythos of the moon landing, but it came in bright, candy-coloured bioceramic cases and sold for a few $100s. The effect was immediate. Queues formed around Swatch boutiques, resale prices spiked overnight. But like all cultural explosions, the initial mania couldn't last forever. After the dust settled, reality began to set in. The novelty wore off, the demand cooled. What had felt like a revolution in 2022 started to look by 2024 like the relic of a hype culture, a once-in-a-generation launch that couldn't quite sustain its own legend. Instead, it entered a quieter, more deliberate second act. Swatch realised they didn't need to recapture the original frenzy of the first release. They only needed to keep the flame alive. And so they began releasing new models, not with the chaos of the first launch, but with a measured flow. So, what did they release? Well, the initial bioceramic Moonswatch collection was followed by the Mission to Moonphase, then the Mission on Earth, then the Mission to Earthphase, Mission to the Pink Moonphase, and then the 1965. Okay, back to the present day, it's 2025, so what is going on with this watch range now? Well, believe it or not, Swatch have released a brand new Moonswatch model. Don't act surprised, you knew it was coming. So this one is called Mission to Earthphase Moonshine Gold. The Moonshine Gold adds golden features to the Moonswatch range. What we essentially have here are 3 different models, each based on its own month, and each one is slightly different. For the August model, a sturgeon moon with a delicate net-like pattern sits on one of the moons on its moon phase. For September, there's a tribute to the harvest or corn moon with popcorn kernels on the moon phase. And finally, for October, a hunter's moon is celebrated with a human hand pointing directly at the wearer on its moon phase indicator. This new model then is a mix between the Mission to Moonphase and Mission to Earthphase. And I think we can safely say now that Swatch has caught on to the fact that Snoopy sells. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Snoopy is a historical treasure, a figure that I have always loved. By putting Snoopy on yet another watch, are Swatch cheapening its name? We also, sadly, need to talk about the nature of this release. The watch was priced at $380 initially upon announcement. A week later, it jumped to $400. $400 for a plastic watch is a debate we always love to have here in the watch community. How much is too much when it comes to plastic? What if Rolex released a plastic watch? How much would people pay for it then? No matter what you think, the majority of us are probably all in agreement. $400 for a plastic watch is simply just too much. Now you might say to me, what about those tariffs? But tariffs in the US were already factored in at this stage, so this hike isn't justifiable. So back to the release, we have a $400 new Moonswatch with Snoopy on and new gold features. Okay, fair play, but what happened next was really unexpected. Swatch raised the price again on the day of release to $450. People were already in the queues when this decision was made. Can you imagine the backlash if Apple, say for example on the release day of the new iPhone, suddenly announced a 12.5% increase in price for no reason? Then there's the issue of availability. On social media channels, Swatch had been implying this model was not limited. Yet on the day of release, it wasn't uncommon for stores to be sold out in 15 minutes. Reports were coming in that many of these stores had only between 25 to 50 watches in stock. So many customers were in a way lured to the stores, queued for hours, and then unfortunately let down. I don't know what's going on. I mean, is this just the world that we live in now? Are we as consumers just viewed upon by companies as gullible and easy to take for a ride? Or is this just Swatch testing the waters to see what they can get away with? What does Omega have to say about all of this? This watch, after all, does represent one of their most iconic models. Yet, part of me has to believe that this isn't something they would do to their own customers, So why is it happening here? The Moonshine Gold is otherwise the same as all the other Moonswatch models. It's got some nice new bits on it, and it's more expensive. Another subtle issue is consumer fatigue. When too many variations appear, new colours, minor tweaks, one-off tie-ins, the magic can start to blur. Each release feels less special. The Moonswatch story, once clear and playful, risks being diluted by repetition. Ultimately, the Moonswatch story is a microcosm of modern consumer culture. It began as an explosion of hype, crashed under its own weight, and is now finding some sort of equilibrium. I guess the trick is knowing when to let go of all the mania and move on to something new. Treating customers badly though, all for a bit of money, can be a telling clue, and perhaps the final nail in the coffin. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This continual story of the MoonSwatch Saga is quite fascinating to follow, and let me know what you think in the comments on how this new release was handled, and if you would still buy one of these watches. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.